From awaytogarden.com and robinhoodradio.com, this is A Way to Garden with Margaret Roach, your weekly invitation to dig in and grow.
Yes, I know you plan to grow the usual row of zinnias, but what other among organic flower farmer Jenny Elliott's must-grow list of cutting flowers do you have lined up and ready to sow or have a source of starts for? Flowers you shouldn't garden without are our topic today, but first this message.
Programming and underwriting support from Garden Tool Company. Garden Tool Company's wide selection of heirloom quality tools for your gardening passion is backed by outstanding customer service, fast shipping, and ongoing support. GardenToolCompany.com.
Jenny Elliott of Tiny Hearts Farm in Copake, New York, is a farmer florist with partner Luke Franco and their crew. She grows flowers organically both for the wholesale market, for subscribers to her weekly flower CSA, and also for events, including weddings. She's my beloved neighbor and friend, and she's got a calendar of classes each month at her Tiny Hearts flower shop, too. So we'll have details of all that with the transcript. But meantime, welcome back, Jenny. How are things in bustling downtown Copake, New York?
Oh, busy.
Yeah, I bet.
Actually, they are, right? Because it's March and it's sunny. So it's crazy busy.
Today's agenda, to kind of get us all to widen our palette a bit beyond, marigolds and zinnias and so forth, wonderful. But you kind of, as a farmer florist, you look at flowers, not just color even, but structure, the sort of potential role they can play in your designs, don't you?
Right. So I'm in the middle of crop planning now. I'm doing it in chunks this year, so I don't lose my mind. And so that's all I've been thinking about lately. And I think through things as how I'm going to use them in design, or how the florists that we sell to are going to use them in design, because that's so much of what we do.
Right. So you might think of some like as focal points, for instance, right? Is that what do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I have three main categories I think of. One is focal flowers. Two is accent flowers. Those littler guys that you still need in an arrangement. And three is a lot of people call them whimsy flowers. Maybe we call them yoo-hoos because they pop up out of an arrangement and go yoo-hoo. And then foliage too, is of course a really important one.
So, in those groups, where should we start? Should we start with what are some of the, and I guess I should say I think it was last year when we spoke on the show, you and I talked a lot about a lot of your favorites, among them maybe some of the more commonly grown, like the zinnias and marigolds I just mentioned, your favorite varieties, and about succession planting, sowing more than once with those. And we'll give a link to all that, and we can talk about it a little again. But with those focal flowers, what are some of the examples of that in your planting plan that you're working on?
Yeah, so it's something that we think about as needing to have a focal flower at least through the entire season, so from at least May through November. So a lot of those are quite picky and need greenhouses or whatnot, right? Like our first one that comes in is anemones and ranunculus, followed shortly by tulips, and then we plant lilies in crates in the greenhouse to kind of fill in a gap between tulips and peonies, and then again between peonies and like the summer flowers that are coming in.
Right.
And then we've got sunflowers, and then all those loves that we already talked about, the zinnias and the marigolds and rudbeckias and things like that at high summer. Mm-hmm. On to dahlias, and then heirloom mums. And that's kind of like an overview of how we think of our focal flower season.
So we gardeners now, we can't plant tulips now, but we could put in an order for the fall when the listings come, and think about having that as to stretch our cutting garden. And lilies, some of those are sold at different times of year, but many in the fall. Peonies, same thing. So, those are important for us to think about, maybe not just having in a bed and border where we might be hesitant to cut it, but adding a few to a bed that's more of a nursery or cutting area.
Yeah, not being afraid to cut those suckers out. Yeah.
So dahlias and dahlias and sunflowers sound like two that are ones that we should consider. And dahlias are a little special in how they're grown. Tell us some of the ones you love, both in the dahlias and sunflowers, some of your kind of favorites or the types that you like.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Dahlias, they're my favorite flower, have been my whole life.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I loved them. I was like the nerdy kid who wrote letters to dahlia companies saying, "May I please have a catalog?" when I was in like middle school. Pre-internet. But what I love about them so much is all the shapes, right? There's so many shapes and sizes and colors, and the variety is just tremendous. Can be a little overwhelming. So we try a lot and keep our favorites, but one of my favorites is Sierra Glow. It's like a huge salmon dinner plate. We say it looks like a lobster or a sea anemone or something. It's very dramatic. Of course, Cafe au lait we grow tons of. We do wedding work, so.
And so Cafe au lait is what color? How would you describe the color?
Oh, it's blushy, milky. Sometimes almost tan. Kind of ivory color.
And is it big or small? What shape is it?
It's pretty big. It's I think it's classified as a dinner plate, but for us it never is quite that big. Maybe 5-6 inches across. And they have just these beautiful faces, lots and lots of petals. And then I really, really love ball dahlias. The perfect balls.
Yes.
Yeah, one that I was late to the game with, but we finally put them in last year was Cornell Bronze.
Cornell Bronze.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, it's a perfect ball, actually bronze colored, and so prolific, like just sent up stem after stem after stem. So we're doing a lot more of those.
Do you grow any of the cactus-y kind or any of the other shapes, or more dinner plate and the ball types?
We don't do cactus ones because they have such a short vase life.
Oh, interesting. See, now I didn't know that.
Yeah. The balls last the longest. You can get, it's hard with dahlias because they do have a short vase life, just in general. But the balls usually last for about a week, which is the longest. And then some of the dinner plates are really surprising. You can get 5 days out of them or so. And then the cactus ones, the more loosey-goosey the petals are, like the less structure there is in the flower.
I see.
The shorter the vase life.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but there's all kinds of classifications of dahlias, right? So we grow formal decoratives and informal decoratives and anemone-type dahlias and the balls and the pom-poms, the teeny tiny pom-poms, which I love.
Yeah. So dahlias are kind of, you probably, do you just put them out in the field or do you pre-start them somewhere? Or kind of, since we're talking about them, why don't we cover sort of some tips that you've learned from growing them on this scale for quite a while?
Yeah, so we just plant them straight into the field for the most part. We make sure that there's an eye, preferably by the time we're planting, which for us is around mid-May, the second week of May or so.
And we're in Zone 5B, so that's the Northeast, just for people's reference. If they're elsewhere, they can adjust. Yeah.
Yes. And, I try to have I'd like for that eye to be sprouted. We're planting so many that we don't actually stop and look at each one.
Right.
But that's it. 6 inches or so deep on their sides, and they really sprout pretty easily.
When you said on their sides, tell me what that means.
So, the tuber is usually pretty... Well, the tubers come in all kinds of shapes, too, which is interesting also. But usually they're fairly long.
Yes.
And so you don't plant them, straight up and down.
Right.
You lay them down on their side.
Okay.
So your planting hole has to be kind of big.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. And so 6 inches, once the weather is settling, is what you're talking about.
Yeah. What is it? Soil temps around 55, I think, for dahlia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you stake them or put up some kind of support, or what do you do?
Yes. we've tried all kinds of things, and we got pretty jealous when some other growers that we know were not staking their dahlias at all, and we thought, oh, that's a good idea. What fools we are for staking our dahlias all these years.
Oh.
Well, you know how windy Copiague is.
Yes. We should tell everyone that the first day I met you when you moved to Copiague, and a group of new farmers moved to Copiague, you among them, and someone at the table said to me, the old longtime resident, "So what's the weather like here?" And I said, "Windy."
And it's proved to be true.
Yeah. So you are staking or supporting them.
Yeah. So that didn't go well. So we're staking in all kinds of ways. Our favorite way right now is to we use Hortonova netting. Like vertical netting, which makes it really difficult to harvest from because dahlias have so much foliage.
Yes.
But it's easiest to put in May when we're really, really busy.
So is this like a grid that goes parallel to the ground? That's
yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
and they poke through it. Mm-hmm. Okay, Hortonova netting. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is not pretty for gardens. Though,
no.
But,
so we can stake. We can stake. We can put a stake in when we plant the tuber, so we don't pierce it because we'll know where it is, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like bamboo teepees or work really well for dahlias. Or
oh, that's a good idea. A bit nicer. And do you pinch them, or when the plants come up, is there any aftercare, or what else happens?
Yeah, so they don't really like to be super wet once they're planted. So we don't water them unless it's very dry because you don't want them. It's still cool out when you're planting them. You don't want them to rot underground.
Right.
And then once they sprout and they're maybe, 5 inches, 4 inches, 5 inches tall, we pinch them down to 3 sets of leaves.
Oh.
And that way you get your flowers a little bit later, but not much later, and you get a lot more stems off of the plant.
Oh, okay, great. And is there any you're an organic farm, I'm an organic garden, is there any nutrition program going on or compost or?
Yeah, well, they are hungry because it's a big plant and they're forming all those new tubers underground. So they're hungry and they're thirsty all season long. So we start with a good soil test to make sure that our soil's pretty well balanced before we put them in. And then they love a scoop of compost. And we do, while they're growing, while they're young and putting on a lot of that bushy green growth, we just do a kelp fish emulsion about every 10 days or so.
Okay. And is that a powder or liquid, or how do you?
It's a liquid.
Yeah.
We use a liquid.
Yeah. Okay.
Foliar spray.
Huh. All right. So dahlias, there's some improved advice for growing dahlias. And so you mentioned sunflowers. Any favorites that you want to share with us? Because there's so many.
Yes, and I'm so surprised I mentioned sunflowers because I've been a hater for years.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, as a grower, they take up a lot of space.
Yes.
It's one cut and you're done. They're heavy. Yes. They're cumbersome to move around the farm. They take up all the cooler space, But this year, I met some that I really liked, and I learned that I'm not crazy about a traditional sunflower for arranging. It makes everything automatically feel very, backyardy, which is great if that's what you're going for in your design, but usually we're not.
Right.
So some of the dark sunflowers and some of the very pale sunflowers were great this year. So we did one called White Light, which is fairly new, and it's
White Light.
Very pale yellow, the petals and the center. There's one called Starburst Lemon Aura that I really liked, which is a double, or almost like a teddy bear. Really, it's so full of petals. And same thing, that really pale yellow color. And then there's one called Red Hedge, which I've not liked red sunflowers in the past because they lose their petals easy.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they tend to just drop petals, and it looks like it's missing a tooth or something. So these ones didn't drop their petals so much, and the petals are twisted just a little bit. They have a torque to them, so it looks like a sunflower, but almost not.
Red Hedge. Okay.
Red hedge.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So those are some good ones.
Yeah, I like
right.
them.
So what's next on the list? You grow cosmos, yeah? And that's an evolving world, certainly.
Yeah, cosmos has been interesting lately, right?
Yeah.
A lot of new colors have come out. I've always loved the double click series.
Yes,
And
double
we've
clicks.
tons of those.
Yeah. They look like a little more puffy, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're great. Tons of petals packed in there, and they come in really nice colors. And after trying a lot of cosmos varieties, those were the ones that they're reliable, they're prolific. The flowers always look nice, so they're a winner. But recently, Xanthos has been really cool. You know, that yellow one?
Is that like
came out recently?
Xanthos?
Yeah, Xanthos.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, not as prolific and not as tall, not as, sturdy of a grower, but that color can't be beat. And then we did one called Rubenza a couple years ago that was gorgeous, just this rust-colored, really. Kind of an in-between color, in between red and purple and brown, which is a really nice thing to have when you're designing with flowers, like a color that's an in-between color that can tie other colors together in an arrangement.
Yes.
Yeah, but just lots of new cosmos coming out all the time. We're going to be trying a lot more varieties this year.
I've noticed there's a cupcake series because the petals are fluted like cupcake wrappers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then there's another
look like a cupcake wrapper.
And then with your cupcake, you could have the variety called apricot lemonade, which it's like the color of the dawn. Have you seen it? It's like the softest apricot and pale yellow with like a ring of blush pink.
Yeah, I'm excited to try that. If it comes out like the pictures, it's going to be incredible.
Yeah, so there's like deep colors and, like you said before, like the double click or puffy and so forth. So, so what else should we put in the garden? What names some of the other annuals that you want us to do that are in, we were past your focals and now what, like the cosmos, what would they be? What would you call them? Are they in the accent group or are they what are they in?
I consider them an accent.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of depends, these groups cross over, of course, because it depends how you're using them. And sometimes you get that big, massive flower that's going to be a focal, but mostly they're accent flowers. Some of the others, I was just trying to think of ones that are just reliable and prolific and ones that I wouldn't go without, Scabiosas.
Uh-huh. Pincushion flower, is that what we used to call it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's the perennial and annual varieties, right? So for perennials, we do the Fama series. There's white and blue, and those are great, big, huge flowers. Those could almost be considered a focal. And then the annual ones, which we grow tons of, are smaller, but they come in such fantastic colors, and they can just be like just tall and sturdy and amazing. There's one called Black Knight, which is really nearly black. Salmon Queen, this gorgeous deep pink color. There's one called Fata Morgana, which is kind of a pale yellow apricot color, which I quit growing because it's not so prolific. It's just not...
For your use.
Like the other ones.
Yeah.
But the color, I think I'm going to bring it back because the color is just incredible. I do this a lot. I give up on something, and then I really miss it, and I bring it back.
Yeah.
So I love the Scabiosas. And then I feel like they're all over. We grow so much of it, but Gomphrena, I just could not do without Gomphrena.
Uh-huh.
We grow all the colors, every color. And depending on, from a design perspective, there's the bushier ones, right, the globosas.
Yes.
And they come in the paler colors, the pinks and purples, and then I'll butcher the Latin here, but the Hagienas, I think they're called.
I don't know. It's Hagiena, whatever. Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, right? And they grow more of it's like a single stem habit.
Yeah.
And they're the really bright, the dark pinks and the crimsons and the oranges.
Yeah.
And those are, like the bushy ones we'll kind of use as an accent, and the single stem types are more of the yoo-hoos that pop out of an arrangement.
Some other yoo-hoos? What are some other yoo-hoos?
Other yoo-hoos. Well, my very favorite yoo-hoo is fennel.
Fennel, like copper fennel or all fennel?
All the fennel. I love all the fennel. Ooh, we could do a whole thing on vegetable flower crossovers. My favorite.
Yeah.
So we grow big long rows of fennel just so that it will bolt, so we can get the flowers.
Right.
And then we do a ton of bronze fennel and let it bolt so that we get those tall stems.
Right.
With the kind of dusty gold flowers. So that's one of my favorites. And then grasses of all kinds.
Yeah.
I love the feathertop grass. Ooh, grass names. Gosh, I don't know. We call it feathertop grass.
Okay.
And then the ruby silk love grass. Do you know that one?
Yes.
Very drapey. Fantastic. Yes. We grew a green one this year, which was really nice also.
So we need some grasses in the cutting garden.
And then, what's super hot right now?
Yes, I know.
Back on the popular list are dried flowers.
Yeah. So give us one of those.
Well, we're doing quadruple the larkspur this year that we've ever done.
Oh.
Yeah, tons of it. And especially one called Earl Grey. It's kind of lavender gray, dries beautifully. And then also doubling our amobium crops this year.
The winged everlasting, a tiny little sort of daisy-ish thing. Yeah.
And when it dries, keeps that like pure white color, which is really nice.
Yeah.
A lot of things dry brown,
Yeah.
And then there's an Ami that we've been growing, which I have quit growing because it gave our whole staff really terrible rashes one year.
Yes, I was going to say that, the Ami, AMMI, for people who don't know it, people can get a dermatitis, a contact dermatitis from the milky sap in it. Yeah.
Yeah, so we were all very sensitive to it one year. I quit growing it, and I missed it, brought it back.
Yeah.
And we did not really pick it this year. We just let it go to seed, and we picked and dried all the seed heads.
Okay, so you got past the milky sap point.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so we should plan to make some room for some of these drying subjects as well in our cutting garden.
Yeah.
So we're almost out of time, but and I think for a lot of these where we will be making successions, like we talked about last time, and again I'll give the link to that transcript for people where they're going to sow them multiple times, or anything general for a minute you just want to say about growing these?
Yeah, a lot of these are ones that we do like twice a year.
Okay.
We'll do an early sowing, and then sow again maybe in, I don't know, May or so, late May, to get some fall flowers, early June even, to get some fall flowers, just to get a fresh...
So you do an indoor sowing even earlier to put out at that time, at frost time, and then you...
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and then sunflowers, we're just direct sowing those every 2 weeks or so out in the field.
All right.
But I think everything else I mentioned, aside from dahlias, of course.
Yeah, well, that's why I wanted to get the details on those, because those are great tips, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Cosmos we squeeze in a lot more, but
more repeats, more successions.
I think we do 5 cosmos successions over the year, but we're cutting awfully heavy off of those.
Yeah. Well, Jenny Elliott of Tiny Hearts Farm, I will see you in downtown Copiague any minute. And thank you for making the time to talk about this. Now go back to the greenhouse and get sowing, okay?
That's where I'm headed.
All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Margaret.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Programming and underwriting support from Brushwood Nursery. For more than 20 years, Brushwood Nursery has shipped the finest selection of clematis and other vines all over the United States, with full gallon-sized plant and free shipping. Their website is full of beautiful pictures and information on growing clematis. BrushwoodNursery.com.
And thanks for all of you for tuning in, too. Now, don't miss an episode. You can subscribe free to the podcast version of the show on Stitcher or iTunes or Spotify. And you can find me anytime at awaytogarden.com or at Facebook or on Instagram as @awaytogarden. And happy gardening meantime.
Away to Garden with Margaret Roach is a joint production of awaytogarden.com and the smallest NPR station in the nation, Robin Hood Radio.